the best of the week on Relevant Radio.
Pope Leo the 14th. A lot of people are looking at this Pope. People ask me, hey, what do you think of the Pope? He's relatively young for being newly elected. You know, Pope St. John Paul II, I think he was 58 when he was elected in 78. He was youthful. Benedict was 78. Pope Francis was 76. Leo's 69. So he falls kind of in the middle in terms of those most recent popes go. He's in good health, had a personal trainer up until this election, and his trainer had no idea he was a cardinal. You kind of like that. You think that would come up in conversation, though, right? But what's going to be interesting is to see how well he connects with the youth. For John Paul, of course, he was a rock star. You know, everybody, he was magnetic. They were just drawn to him. World Youth Days that he started were always well attended, making a record for the largest known gathering of people in one site, one time. That was the Philippines. I think 5 million people showed up for that. You know, Pope Benedict didn't quite obtain the same status as his predecessor, but he still attracted youth wherever he went in large numbers. So the next World Youth Day is coming up. It's August 27th. You can mark your calendar. It's going to be in Seoul, South Korea. Millions are expected to attend. And what will be interesting to see is how it goes with Pope Leo. He addressed the faithful from Wright Field. People are very excited about the new Pope and all that he represents and brings, especially for the imprint and impact it will have on our youth. I'm joined today by Msgr James Shea. He's the president of the University of Mary in Bismarck, North Dakota. You can find him at cometomary.life. He joins us just about every other Tuesday here. It's always good to tap into his observations, intelligence, and expertise. And let me ask you this, Msgr. We'll start with Pope Leo. Your view of him. He's been in office now as the Pope he's in the chair, Peter, I really should say, just for a very short time. But already, it seems like he's having an impact on the world, and a lot of youth are very attracted to him. Give me your sense on the small window we've had to see him, but also how youth are responding.
Well, sure. So it's really cool that Father Rocky was at the stadium the other day, at the ballpark, where Pope Leo addressed that crowd, that gathering in the Archdiocese of Chicago. And remember, the Pope spoke specifically to the youth who were present and said that they need to be beacons of hope. And so I think he's taking a page from the playbook of his predecessors and really making sure that the young people of the church know that they're not just the church of tomorrow, they're also the church of today, and that their vital faith makes a difference right now, and that it's important, and that they give the rest of us hope when they practice their faith well, when they're deeply devoted to God and to our Catholic faith. And so that's very exciting. You know, every year the University of Mary has on our campus in mid-June, and so they're all here right now, a whole bunch of teenagers. They're high school students from across our region who gather on campus for a couple of days, and then they go on pilgrimage to Italy. They spend time in Rome. They go out to Subiaco and Monte Cassino. They stop in Orvieto to see the Eucharistic miracle, Siena, the Eucharistic miracle. They spend time in Assisi. These are places that you and I have been with Pilgrims before, and we know the transforming power of that. But I think if you asked any of the 150 teenagers who are on our campus today, getting ready for their pilgrimage over to Rome, what they're most excited about, they would tell you unanimously, not pasta, not the blazing Italian summer. They want to see Pope Leo. They want to see the first American-born Pope. They want to get to know him. This is very beautiful because, you know, I'm of a generation where a lot of my seminary classmates and I speak about ourselves as JPII priests, you know, because we were so deeply inspired by John Paul II, and especially the impact that he made when he came to World Youth Day in 1993 to Denver, Colorado, to Mile High Stadium. That's never left our collective imagination. It's never left our memory. And so as a result, many of us date the strength of our vocation to that. I think that we're seeing that with these young people today. So they're very excited to meet the new Pope. The students don't get to take any cell phone with them. And so it's 2 weeks with no digital technology. And the way that students transform when they're away from their cell phone is extraordinary. And so it's a beautiful experience of faith. They're looking forward to meeting this new Pope. He's their Pope.
It's like detoxing. I mean, you're almost addicted. It's like an appendage, not having your cell phone with you. So once you get it out of the system, man, there's a freedom that comes with it. Everyone who says they've done that, it's liberating. Yeah. It really is. You talk about, John Paul II, Benedict, papacies, large number of youth, young men, I should say, really have entered the priesthood and religious life. What is it about particular popes that have the capacity to do that? Is it the example that young men see in their papacy? I mean, Benedict was a great intellect. John Paul, as I said, he was too, but of course, incredibly charismatic. Does Leo have the capacity to make that happen again? And maybe we'll see U.S. vocations rise. It's so weird, I often say, to hear the Holy Father speak in my native tongue. But your thoughts?
Well, so I think that each Holy Father has his own charisma in a particular sense. Leo, it's early. It's probably too early to tell, but he seems a little bit more reserved, a little bit shyer. But I saw something which happened because, of course, I was studying in Rome during the final years of John Paul II's papacy. And, of course, he had tremendous charisma. And even at the end, when he wasn't able much because of the onset of Parkinson's and other health problems, he wasn't able to sort of hold the piazza in the same way that he was before. There was still that beautiful charisma that kind of ran through him. Benedict XVI was more reserved. And when I took Pilgrims over there, the students, they really loved him. They loved him just because of sort of the warmth that was around Benedict XVI. And then Francis had his own charisma as well. Of course, we have a campus over in Rome, and so our students are always going back there. They're always coming back here to our main campus, and they used to speak about what it meant to them to see Pope Francis. And so I think, every pope has his own ethos, his own charisma. And I think that Pope Leo himself has a little bit more reserve. I think the kicker, though, and I hate to bring it down to something that seems so pedestrian, but the fact that we have the first pope in all of history who speaks English with a Midwestern accent, for our students up here in North Dakota, that's solid gold. I mean, it's very, I couldn't believe it. In the first couple of days after his election, I'd see a YouTube video or something would come across my desk, and I was gobsmacked by the experience of hearing the Vicar of Christ speak not just in my own language, but with an American Midwestern accent. And so I think that that's an extra edge for Pope Leo in the affection department from our students here.
Nick and I came across a USCCB ordination report for 2025, and they looked in and they found some interesting data. The average age when a man first considered priesthood, they said, was 16 years old. That means the call must have came often, right? But they needed encouragement to take root. I asked Nick, my producer Nick was in seminary for 7 years and got out before the final year. He says he felt it around age 15 or so. And I think it's really important. If you feel that call, pursue it. It doesn't mean you have to be a priest. Look at Nick. He pursued it and realized that God had a different calling. He's now a father and he's married. 89% of men said that somebody encouraged them to consider the priesthood. And that's really it. I hear that more than anything from priests. When I ask them, how'd you enter the priesthood or what happened? Quite often somebody says, I think you'd make a great priest, or hey, have you ever considered this vocation? Most parish priests, 60% of these men were encouraged by a parish priest, 52 by a friend, 42 by a parishioner. So that nudge, that little word of encouragement, I'm telling you, it matters. Monsignor, let me ask you, how old were you when you felt the call? And was there somebody in your life that directed you to the priesthood or said, hey, you'd make a great priest?
I was very young, actually. I was probably in third or fourth grade when I first started thinking about it. Then I forgot about it entirely until I was probably a junior in high school. And it was funny, when I was doing high school work years later, the sort of shorthand was 11 and 11. And so when a young man is 11 years old, and then oftentimes when they're in 11th grade. And so that maps a little bit onto the Cara study that you just said. And so, I remember it again in late high school. And by the time I went off to college, I was thinking very seriously about it. I did go to 2 years of college, study English and history before entering the seminary. But who encouraged me, when I was very young, our parish was served by the Precious Blood Fathers. They're kind of a missionary apostolate that was founded by St. Gaspar de Buffalo in Italy. And those priests, the Precious Blood Fathers in my home parish, were just really good to us kids. They lived joyful, happy lives. And I don't remember any of them pulling me aside and saying, you should really be a priest. And I don't remember my parents encouraging me in that way, but it would have been welcome for sure. But I just got thinking about it because I was so enamored with these men who were just so kind to us children, who were so devout in their lives. And it just seemed to me that they were living an amazing life, and I wanted that.
When I was in high school, I had a friend who was a priest, and we played racquetball. We do all sorts of things together, and I considered it. I thought, well, maybe this is what God's calling me to, and I think it's so important to have that type of exposure and to at least question. It wasn't my vocation. This is what God called me to, and I find great peace in this. But I would encourage any man who's listening right now, maybe it's by God's providence you're hearing our voice in this conversation right now. Yeah, pursue it. If somebody is going to pursue it too, what's the best avenue? Somebody's saying, well, I don't even know what to do, Drew. What's the next step?
I think the first thing is to talk to a priest. I don't know any priest who wouldn't be really happy to sit down with a young man and talk about the life of priesthood, and then get him connected with who it might be good for him to speak with. Because a vocation isn't a cookie cutter thing. In other words, a man might be called to religious life to be a Jesuit or a Dominican or a Franciscan, or might be called to diocesan life to be a parish priest. And so I think that to sit down with a trusted priest and to say, I'm thinking about the priesthood, there's a nudge in my heart. That's a conversation that I think any priest is willing and ready to have any day of the week. And
you may not be 16. A lot of these men are not coming out of a vacuum. And 66% had full-time work experiences before the seminary. 78% say they participated in Eucharistic adoration. I would think adoration in the rosary, maybe Bible studies or Lectio Divina, those are things that probably help form a man as well and say, hey, that's what I have to do. What's your vision for priestly living? The church in the U.S. has changed. You've called for an update, how priests live and minister, and maybe how can Catholics love and support their priest, and what's your vision for the future of the priesthood?
Well, I think that, of course, I'm a college president, and so my life has a particular texture and tone to it. But as I gaze out into the church at large, and there are logistical challenges with this, but I think that the age of the Lone Ranger pastor is probably over. It's probably more important than ever for priests to live at least in small communities of 2-3 men who are keeping each other accountable, who are supporting each other in daily life, breaking bread together, sharing meals. I think that really, really is important because, when you're out there on your own, trying to manage by yourself, oftentimes you're lacking the support necessary to live the kind of life of virtue and prayer and devotion that the priest is really called to in our time. And there's so many societal and cultural pressures out there as well. And so, you hear one sad story after the next.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. I have a couple of men who I know are priests right now, and I've been to one of their rectories. I had dinner with him, and he's in this massive rectory that was once teeming with priests, right? They had multiple rooms, a giant school that's now empty because nobody's in it. It's not in the best part of town. He's all by himself. I'm thinking, my gosh, you commit your life to God, and here you are living a solitary environment. He's a priest who told me, he says, Sundays are the loneliest day of the week because after Mass, after you're with everybody goes home to their families and does their things, and I go back to this empty, rectory. And I think it'd be very lonely. I often invite people when they hear that, reach out to your priest, invite him over for dinner, maybe bring him some dinner. Don't forget them, do their thing. But I think the idea of living together, holding each other accountable, because, alcoholism or pornography or any threat that any man could face, living by himself, can be negated by that sense of community. So I don't know what that means, if Monsignor, that people still run these, church still runs these dioceses and parishes, but guys live together, and I don't know how it works, but that's something we'll have to see.
I think that's one of the things that the church is really thinking seriously about. Another portion of that, of course, is the Propedeutic year that the new program for priestly formation is put on at the front of seminary, which is kind of, we talked earlier in the segment about detox from the culture. That's needed as young men are preparing for the priesthood as well. But this is the month of the Sacred Heart, June, and St. John Vianney, the patron saint of parish priests, said that the priesthood is the love of the heart of Jesus. And so I just want to endorse what you said. All of our listeners should reach out to their priest during the course of this month, thank them for their service, and support them in any way that they can.
Well, Monsignor, always a pleasure talking with you. We're out of time, as you know, but people want to check out the university more than anything else. What's the best way to do that?
They can go right to cometomary.life, or our main website is just umary.edu, or they can drive to Bismarck in June, which is a super good idea. It's beautiful. It's green up here, no mosquitoes yet, and it's 72 every single day and sunny. It's better than February. Come see us in June.
I love it, and I still have got to get out there, but boy, the summers in Bismarck must be absolutely gorgeous.
They're amazing.
Check it out. Hey, we'll catch up soon, okay? Looking forward to talking to you again.
God bless you, Drew.
God bless you. That's Monsignor James Shea, president of the University of Mary. Most affordable Catholic education in the country, at least that I'm aware of. I think that still holds true. Hey, like what you just heard? Then share it with your family and friends. And thanks for listening.